tenemos un episodio ñoño como nos gustan. Hablamos de los wide receivers candidatos a regresión, tanto positiva como negativa de touchdown. Información sumamente útil para drafts. Pásenle que ya empieza.
¡Fantástico Tocho! Con sus anfitriones Mansa, Mayer, El Crío y Sergio.
Bienvenidos a Fantástico Tocho, el podcast de Fantasy Football en el idioma de Selena Quintanilla, porque hoy tenemos un show pocho bilingüe, ahora verán por qué. Yo soy Mansa, aquí me acompaña como siempre Serge. ¿Cómo estás, Serge?
Todo bien, gracias Mansa.
Qué bueno. Y tenemos un invitado de lujo, Scott Sidlo de Dynasty Junkies. Welcome, Scott. How are you? So nice to have you here.
Javier, thanks for having me. Yeah, very excited to be here. I love to do these guest spots, and this one's fun. You know, I got to spend a lot of time in Texas with my now ex-girlfriend. She was from Peru, and so we spoke a lot of Spanish back then, but now I'm very rusty. So I'll pick up some here and there, but I recognize some things, you know.
Don't worry, we will do it bilingual here for everyone. Welcome. It's really cool to have you here. I understand you two guys are playing together in a Devy League.
That's right. Yeah. So I was invited to a Devy League, and we have a lot of great people in there. And Sergio and I, we've been chatting in the messages, and one night my guest for my podcast couldn't make it, and so I said, hey, you know, I went to this group because I think these guys are smart, so let's get some of these guys. And Sergio was like, yeah, I'd love to do it, man. So Sergio was on Junkies, and it was a couple months ago, I think. And so yeah, we had a great time there, and then now we're in this Devy League where we drafted our NFL team on MFL, and then we still have to do the Devy draft, which I think is going to be on Fantrax, I believe. So we haven't done that part yet, that portion.
Cool. Para los que no sepan qué es una Devy League, es el tipo de liga más clavada y complicada que existe. Una Devy League es básicamente draftear jugadores desde college. Tu draft inicial incluye a los rookies, pero más bien el draft anual son jugadores. ¿Desde qué edad los drafteas, Serge?
Según, well, here we will draft anyone who is in college, right?
Yeah, so the college guys will acquire, it's a separate league. So NFL league and then college league. Oh, and then, so you want to have a combination of good college players that score points, but then you also want to have players that might make it to the NFL, because you don't have a rookie draft on the NFL side. Your college players just move from one league to the next. So if you don't have any good NFL players on your roster, your NFL side is going to suffer.
Ok, entonces el tipo de liga que ellos están jugando básicamente son dos ligas, una que es tu liga de la NFL y tu liga de college, pero esos jugadores que tienes en tu liga de college te conviene que sean jugadores que llegan a la NFL porque no hay rookie draft. Haces tu draft de college anualmente para incluir jugadores a tu liga de college esperando que se gradúen a tu liga de NFL. That's so cool. Great. Antes de entrar a hablar rápido de las noticias, les recordamos que ya está nuestra liga de Fantochitos NFT Club, está abierta la convocatoria, en fantasticotocho.com están todos los detalles. Básicamente es una liga que combina el mundo de los NFTs con el fantasy, y les recomendamos que lo chequen y que se metan porque ya se llenó la mitad. Muy bien, pues vámonos a las noticias.
Lo más fantástico de la semana anterior.
Tampoco es que haya habido mucho movimiento. Está el rumor y las discusiones de Jimmy G yéndose posiblemente a Seattle. What do you think, Scott? Do you think that Jimmy G will be going to the Seahawks?
I think it's the last team remaining, but they're in the same division. So do you think, you know, that would be the ultimate disrespect to say, hey, we don't think you're good enough. We're going to play against you twice a year, right? To trade you in the same division.
Yeah.
So
Niners would do that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That could be interesting, but I think it's a good fit. It's a similar offense. So yeah, I mean, we need it, for the skill players, DK, Lockett, all those guys, they're in trouble right now with the current quarterbacks.
Yeah. They really need an upgrade there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It would make sense because of that.
Sure.
Pues sí, Jimmy G podría tener sentido porque les urge un buen quarterback. Otras noticias rápidas. Mike Gesicki todavía no discute sobre un contrato después de que le pusieron el franchise tag. Chris Godwin, hay esperanzas de que esté listo para la semana 1. Esa es una nueva noticia que cambia bastante lo que esperábamos de él. Igual creo que es pronto para decir, y para quienes estén drafteando por ahora creo que todavía es un poco arriesgado, pero bueno, es una buena noticia. ¿Qué más por ahí? Chase Edmonds parece ser el favorito para liderar el backfield en Miami. Creo que no hay tanto de noticias importantes por ahora. Bueno, una noticia muy grande que pasó en los últimos días de la que no hemos hablado es Baker Mayfield llegando a Carolina. Pues a mover todo. Y what do you think, Scott? Is it an upgrade from Darnold to Baker?
Well,
it's hard to say no. But I think, hey, DJ Moore is a guy we're probably going to talk about a little bit later. But yeah, I think it's an upgrade for the offense overall. Baker tends to play well until the pressure, right? So maybe late in games, whatever. But if we're just talking about fantasy, I mean, we don't care if he chokes in the fourth quarter, right? We just want the points. So I think it is an upgrade for the offense. I think it's a good thing, for fantasy.
Cool. Pues sí, nosotros también creemos que es un upgrade para lo que hay en Carolina. Y pues muy bien. Sin más, vámonos a...
Y la parte importante de Carolina ahora tiene a los quarterbacks drafteados 1 y 2 de 2018.
Correcto. Al pick 1 y al pick 3. Qué cosa. Ya solo les falta Josh Rosen para completar la colección. Muy bien. Pues vámonos a hablar de lo que vamos a hablar hoy, que es un tema muy interesante, muy nerd, y que les va a ayudar también a tomar decisiones en sus drafts.
A lo que nos truje.
Muy bien, pues vamos a hablar de regresiones y progresiones, o como se les suele decir, regresiones positivas de touchdowns, que antes de entrar al detalle vamos a explicar un poco de qué va esto en el mundo de los wide receivers. Hoy vamos a hablar de touchdowns. Cada año hay un número esperado de touchdowns para cualquier jugador, y esto está basado en estadísticas de yardas, porcentajes de targets que tiene el jugador en el equipo, el histórico de ese jugador, etcétera. Pero sobre todo se basa en yardas, que la principal razón detrás del número de touchdowns de un wide receiver es el número de yardas, ¿no? Aquí hay una correlación directa, y desde 2016 el coeficiente de determinación entre yardas y touchdowns de un wide receiver es 70.5%, y esto quiere decir que más del 70% de la producción de touchdowns de un wide receiver es atribuible a los touchdowns, ¿no? Y aquí vamos a darle crédito a Brandon Dula de Number Fire, que cruzó ese dato con la métrica de puntos esperados para lograr sacar como un promedio más confiable entre ambas métricas y compararla con los touchdowns anotados en la temporada de 2021, ¿no? Y esto, poniéndolo en palabras menos ñoñas y en palabras más mortales, nos da un indicio claro de qué wide receivers excedieron la norma en touchdowns o excedieron las expectativas, y cuáles se quedaron por debajo y por cuánto, lo cual nos da una pista de quiénes deberían de ser candidatos a aumentar sus touchdowns, o sea, a tener una regresión positiva o una progresión, y cuáles deberían ser candidatos a bajar su número de touchdowns teniendo una regresión como tal. porque hicieron mucho más o más de lo que tendría sentido de acuerdo a la estadística, ¿no? ¿Y esto por qué? Porque históricamente menos del 5% de los wide receivers que exceden la expectativa se mantienen o superan esos touchdowns que ya hicieron como por encima de lo esperado al año siguiente, ¿no? Solo casos como Mike Evans, que es un claro outlier a la estadística. Y también del otro lado, históricamente, alrededor del 75% de los wide receivers que se quedan cortos o que hacen menos touchdowns de los esperados, pues ese 75% que es bastante, tienden a subir su total de touchdowns el año siguiente, ¿no? Entonces esto ayuda a tomar decisiones en los drafts, porque pues, son jugadores que podrías esperar o que baje su número de touchdowns o que suba según las estadísticas de regresión, ¿no? Y un disclaimer antes de entrar a esto es estadística y siempre en las estadísticas hay outliers como Mike Evans que se salen de la estadística, como Adam Thielen hace 2 años, pero pues ayuda a tomar decisiones, ¿no? Entonces aquí vamos a estar cambiando entre inglés y español para ir hablando de algunos de los jugadores que más llaman la atención. Vamos a empezar con las malas noticias, candidatos a regresión. ¿Con cuál te late empezar, Serge?
Con uno de los candidatos que creo que no va a tener esa regresión es Jamar Chase.
Ok, Jamar Chase, vamos a ponerlo en números. Jamar Chase tuvo 3.4 touchdowns sobre lo esperado, entonces sería candidato a una pequeña regresión en sus touchdowns y por lo tanto en sus puntos fantasy. What do you think, Scott? Do you think Jamar Chase is going to maintain his big touchdown production, or do you think he will have some kind of regression?
So, it's really hard to say because we know he's incredibly talented, but the offense as a whole is incredibly talented. Higgins could very well get the extra touchdowns this year instead of Chase. Even Boyd as a third receiver. They also brought in Hayden Hurst, who's, a tight end that is very athletic. He's a veteran. He knows how to get open. He could be used in the end zone. I think Uzama scored 6 touchdowns last year. And so Hurst could step right into that role and he could end up with the additional touchdowns. Also, we have to factor in Burrow was coming off that knee injury. This was his first year back. He really didn't run very much. So if he runs for a few more touchdowns, again, these are all areas that are taking away from Chase. And so he's one of those guys that's so talented. I think you can always expect him to exceed expectations, but the variables are there for him to have just 8 touchdowns, something very average for that position because all the other weapons in that offense.
Yes, definitely.
I think that also Burrow will have more touchdowns than last year, and that would help to not decrease the number of touchdowns that have Chase and Higgins and Boyd. So I think Burrow had 34 touchdowns last year, and maybe this year with the offensive line more confident, he can throw around 40.
Yes, but 13 are a lot. 13 are a lot of touchdowns with having a lot of talented players around him. I think it's difficult to maintain that. I think what should happen is Chase should come down a little and Higgins should come up a little. ¿No?
I agree.
Aquí,
yeah.
Lo que decíamos es que estamos hablando de que Jamar Chase, pues sí, si se pasó por la expectativa por 3.75, anotando 13, pues tendría sentido que estuviera más entre los 8-10 y que Higgins suba o Boyd, o al final agregaron, también mencionó Scott, a Hayden Hurst, que seguramente va a demandar targets en red zone. Entonces eso pues son variables que hace que podamos temer un poco de Jamar Chase. No temer, al final es un jugador elite, pero ya hemos hablado de que si estás entre Chase y Higgins, pues estadísticamente te conviene irte por el más barato si van a estar más o menos parejos. Muy bien, ¿algún otro Vamos a hablar de algún otro. Me gustaría, creo que de Mike Evans. Mike Evans es el jugador que siempre está por encima de lo esperado, pero bueno, viene de 14 touchdowns, que fueron 6.65. Es el jugador con más, en teoría, regresión posible, porque fueron más de 6.5 touchdowns por encima de lo esperado. Entonces, debería llegar a una regresión, pero a la vez está en una ofensiva demasiado pass happy, demasiado... Él es el punto focal, la lesión de Godwin. What do you think, guys, about Mike Evans? He's like the king of overachievements, and there's no reason to stop thinking he would continue doing that.
And also, Gronk is not anymore with the Bucs.
No Gronk.
No Gronk.
Godwin is injured. There's a lot of reasons to think that he should be the focal point of this offense. Brady is still there. Great connection with him.
That's exactly right. So he's the opposite of Chase, right? Because even though the offense is great and there's all these weapons, now Tampa Bay, you take away the weapons and you downgrade their offensive line. They lost their two offensive guards. Okay, that's going to have an effect certainly on their pass protection. You mentioned Godwin. We don't know when he's going to be fully healthy. They brought in Russell Gage. He's kind of an inside-outside receiver. He could play a little bit all over the field, but not really a big touchdown guy necessarily. Cameron Brate, maybe he's a crafty vet, can be a red zone guy, but Mike Evans has exceeded this expectation. He was on this list last year, right? Because he just does this every year. He's big, he's strong. Even when he's hurt, he usually has ankle injuries, right? He can get those 1 yard touchdowns. He might not be able to run down the field, but he's going to always be that red zone threat, and Brady's going to be looking for him. So this is where I would say, even though Evans doesn't have the upside of a young Jamar Chase, he won't have the yards and he probably won't have the catches. He could certainly still repeat the touchdowns, very much so. I would bet more on Evans than on Chase.
Yeah, that's a great point. Algo que siempre, una gran trampa del fantasy es confiarte en los touchdowns, pero son muy pocos los jugadores en los que no te voy a decir confiar, pero no es tan mala apuesta confiar en los touchdowns de Mike Evans, por ejemplo. O como pasó en el lado de los running backs con James Conner el año pasado, ¿no? Es un jugador que depende de touchdowns, pero puedes confiar en que los va a tener, ¿no? Entonces es un caso especial. ¿Qué les parece hablar de Adam Thielen? Otro que estuvo bastante por encima de la expectativa en touchdowns. Adam Thielen was 5.19 touchdowns over expected. Anotó 10 touchdowns. So what do you think will happen with Adam Thielen? Are the wheels coming off now, or can we still expect big things from him?
Well, the thing about the Vikings offense is it was a very narrow target tree. We had Thielen, we had Jefferson, we had Cook. That was basically it. There were a few other pieces here and there, but those three were the guys. Now this new offense is the Rams offense. It's also the Bengals offense. We've seen what these guys can do, right? They spread it out. There's more options. KJ Osborne, who's also on this list as well. Yeah. But Osborne, they've drafted a couple guys the last couple of years. Irv Smith is now back healthy. Yeah. So I think there are more weapons. And as Adam Thielen continues his decline here in age and in health, as we've seen the last few seasons, I would make the bet that it'd be tough for him to hit 10 touchdowns this year. I would be very surprised if he did. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been very efficient, so I don't think I'd be shocked, but I would put him more in the he's not likely to get there again.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people drafting him, like trusting in the touchdowns.
Yeah.
No. And even if the new offensive scheme that will be heavy passing, I don't think also get more than 10, maybe more like 6, more around the 5 touchdowns that it's expected for him, but not 10 in this season.
De acuerdo, entonces Adam Thielen es uno en el que su regresión se viene, estuvo 5.19 arriba de lo esperado y podemos realmente esperar que esté más en los 4 o 5 touchdowns, sobre todo con todas las nuevas armas que tiene Minnesota, con la nueva mentalidad de cambio de coach, van a parecerse un poco más al tipo de juego de los Rams. Y pues bueno, let's talk about KJ Osborne now that we're talking about Minnesota. He was not that above the expectation, but it's considerable for the kind of volume he has. KJ Osborne anotó 7 touchdowns, estuvo 2.79 por encima, 2.79 above expectation. But I don't know if I like KJ Osborne at his price. He's a nice dart throw.
Yeah, you can expect what that touchdown that will not have Thielen could have some KJ Osborne.
Yeah, I think so, because he started getting more involved in the offense, but mostly it was when Thielen was hurt. So when Thielen was hurt, Osborne had more than 7 targets. You know, all those games he produced. He was very, very good in those games. So if Thielen's hurt, Osborne is that next guy. Kirk Cousins was 5.7 touchdowns over expected last year. So again, if the whole offense now increases that level of passing, maybe they can all sustain. But my guess is that, you know, an Irv Smith or even one of these young guys like BC Johnson is coming back, Amir Smith-Marset, Jalen Naylor. All these guys are probably not relevant this year, but they could start to earn reps, especially as they go to 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. They also signed a veteran, Albert Wilson, who's been with Miami the last couple of years. And yeah, he's older. He's not going to be special. He's not going to win your league, but he's one of those guys that can kind of play inside outside, and he can play all over the field, which again, if he just takes 2 or 3 touchdowns, you know, now that starts to cap that ceiling for Thielen and Osborne, because you still have the alpha and Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
So everybody can't score 12 touchdowns. You know, it's got to be spread out a little bit typically.
Yeah, definitely. Aquí lo que dice Scott es un muy buen punto, que el volumen de targets se va a repartir bastante. Obviamente Justin Jefferson se cuece aparte, pero sí, todas las nuevas armas y los jugadores que trajeron, más los que se recuperaron, como Irv Smith, va a hacer que se reparta bastante pues los pases, y eso puede, no es que se vayan a volver relevantes todos, sino que le pone un tope al techo de jugadores como Thielen y KJ Osborne. Ok, pues antes de pasar a los candidatos a la regresión positiva o a la progresión, quiero hablar de dos nombres grandes que están aquí, 2 big names that are in this list, Cooper Kupp and DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf was a bit of a disappointment for a lot of people last year, but still he scored 5.65 more touchdowns than expected. DK Metcalf anotó 12 touchdowns, 5.65 más de lo esperado, y aún así fue una decepción para mucha gente. Entonces, he definitely will have a worse quarterback, so that's something to take into account. DK Metcalf is a big mystery for me because of all the variables here. If Jimmy G comes, if the quarterback is Drew Lock or Geno Smith, there's a lot of things in the air here but I don't think he will be able to maintain such a big touchdown overachievement here. What do you guys think?
Well, that's a very nice way to put it, is that they're up in the air, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We know it's not good. It's not a good situation. I will say, if you remember Drew Lock's rookie year, him and Cortland Sutton had this really good connection. And Sutton was getting all the end zone and red zone targets. And DK Metcalf is that type of guy, right? He's a big guy. He can go and he can make plays. So if anyone's going to do it on that team, it would be DK. But to have this much 5.65, I mean, that's not going to happen. The offense as a whole just isn't going to be as productive. There won't be as many scoring opportunities. So even if he does exceed expectations, his number won't be anywhere near 12. It would be absolutely shocking if that happened with the current quarterback situation.
Yeah. Pues sí, lo que dice Scott y tiene razón también, ¿no? Que DK muy difícilmente va a acercarse a esos 12 touchdowns, aunque se volviera lo que fue Cortland Sutton para Drew Lock en su año de novato. Si eso pasara, aún así, por lo que podemos esperar en baja de productividad de esta ofensiva, es difícil que lo logre igualar. Y el caso de Cooper Kupp, pues todos sabemos que tuvo una temporada bestial, anotando 16 touchdowns. Esto fue 3.4 por encima de la expectativa, o sea, tener una expectativa alta. Podemos esperar regresión. Sería lo lógico que haya una regresión en Cooper Kupp. Aún así podría terminar como el wide receiver 1 teniendo una regresión, ¿no? Todavía es algo que incluso podría pasar. Pero, ¿qué opinan ustedes? What do you guys think about Cooper Kupp? We can expect a regression, but what I was saying is that he could still be the wide receiver 1 with the regression.
Yeah, it's like when Peyton Manning threw 60 touchdowns that one year, and then we knew he would regress, but the next year he still threw 40 touchdowns, right? Yeah. So, okay, so yeah, Cooper Kupp, it's very unlikely he repeats those numbers, just like that big year Randy Moss had back when he went to the Patriots with Tom Brady, right? But the next year he was still very, very good. So yeah, these touchdown outliers, especially for Cooper Kupp's his position and also his body type, he's not really that big guy that you think of that's going to go up and get those touchdown catches. So I would expect those touchdowns to decrease, even though his target and reception and yardage totals should still be pretty impressive. So that would not stop me at all from taking him in the first round. I think if you don't want to go with a running back and you want to go with a safer player in that first round, yeah, Cooper Kupp he's worth it. He's still worth it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm not with you guys.
I know.
Yes.
I was going to.
Yeah, because I don't see Cooper Kupp repeat the number 1 wide receiver this year.
Okay, he might not be number 1.
Not number 1.
But he's safe. He's a safe
sure
pick because you got new weapons. Beckham is gone. Allen Robinson is there. Now, I believe Allen Robinson is going to be good. I think he's okay. The Bears ruined him because that's what they do. That's my team. I know. I watch them ruin everybody. I get it.
We also talk about that about Allen Robinson in your thought. Yeah, yes, I remember.
Exactly. So I think Allen Robinson's going to be fine, but he's still changing teams. He's changing systems. He has a new quarterback.
Yeah.
That running game, we don't really know what to expect there. So I think Cooper Kupp he's the safe option. Stafford knows where he's going to be. He's a great route runner. So Sergio, I do agree. I don't think he'll be the number 1 receiver either, but your first round pick you can't win your league with your first round pick, but you can lose it. So
who do you think it will be the number 1 wide receiver?
Probably Chase or Jefferson, just talent and system.
So if you have the possibility of pick one of these 3 guys, who you pick? The number 1 wide receiver that you think, or Cooper Kupp?
I would have Kupp third. out of those three.
Yeah.
But it depends. It depends. If you're at the end of the first round and you can start with Cooper Kupp and then come back with a running back that you like, it just depends on your overall strategy. But my point is he's very safe. He has a high floor, and we know what his ceiling is because he just did it. So I agree with you that I don't think he will do it again, but we know he can, right?
Yes.
And he still has the high floor. So he's a
It's
very,
able
very
to.
safe pick.
Yeah.
He's a safe pick.
Okay.
Yeah. Bueno, lo que estamos diciendo es que Cooper Kupp es muy seguro por la situación en la que está y por el volumen que tiene. Y aunque tenga una regresión y no sea el número uno, es un primer pick muy, muy seguro que te ayuda a tener una buena base para tu equipo. Otros nombres que aparecen aquí en esta lista de posible regresión, ya sin clavarnos en ellos. Allen Lazard, pero bueno, también su situación cambia. DeAndre Hopkins tiene la suspensión. Amari Cooper. Hunter Renfrow es importante porque además su situación es muy distinta ahora. Él creo que we can be pretty sure of his regression with the whole situation with Davante Adams and everything. Y bueno, pues creo que Gabriel Davis, let's talk quickly about him because he's a darling for half of the fantasy community. La mitad de la gente lo ama, la mitad de la gente lo odia, pero bueno, tuvo 2.26 touchdowns por encima de la expectativa y anotó 6. Entonces, su regresión debería llegar. La verdad es que he surpassed expectation because one game. So I don't recommend to bank on those touchdowns for Gabriel Davis. He's a great player, of course. He's in a great offense, but temper your expectations with him.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the understanding of the type of player Gabriel Davis is, this is where real football comes into play, right? Because when you think of like the X receiver and you say, oh, who's the X? Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams. Those are your typical big X receivers. And that's what Gabriel Davis is going to play. Except in that offense, the Z receiver is actually the first read, which is Stephon Diggs. So even though Gabriel Davis will be on the field more and he'll have more opportunity, I think he's likely to be just more inconsistent. He might give you those couple games where he has 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but how are you going to know when? So that's the issue, is you're not going to know when to start him. So unless you're doing a best ball league, if best ball, okay, sure, Gabriel Davis. If it's just your normal, any other league, it's really hard to spend that draft capital on him because you just don't know, you're not going to know when to start him.
Definitely. So enough about the bad news. Suficientes malas noticias, suficientes caras de, yo no estoy de acuerdo, yo voy a seguir drafteando. No. La regresión es algo estadísticamente real. Por eso es importante hablar de esos jugadores y tomarlo en cuenta cuando son jugadores por los que no quieres hacer un reach en tu draft por llevarte a Adam Thielen cuando lo más seguro es que tenga una regresión, por ejemplo, ¿no? Y bueno, esos son algunos nombres que están ahí. Ahora vamos a hablar de los candidatos a una regresión positiva, es decir, jugadores que anotaron menos touchdowns de lo esperado por estas estadísticas que mencionamos al inicio y que por los cuales deberías de poder esperar más. Por ejemplo, hay cuatro nombres que anotaron 0 touchdowns, que debería de esperarse una regresión positiva. I want to start with these 4 players that had 0 touchdowns that were highly drafted last year, some of them, Laviska Shenault, Kenny Golladay, Jerry Judy, and Kadarius Toney. They all had 0 touchdowns last year, and because of that, they were obviously below expectation. What do you think about these 4 guys? Do you have some kind of expectation about one or some of these 4 guys?
So I'm going to tell you this. We talk a lot on Junkies about the rookies and how they fit in and what type of players they're going to be and guys we like, guys we don't like. And this is basically the list of the guys I don't like, and they were all bad. So I feel great, but we know that it was just kind of bad luck, right? This list is telling us they had some bad luck or some bad situations. So we know that it's not going to stay like that forever. I think real football again comes into play with some of these guys. Kenny Galladay, he played with Matthew Stafford before. Stafford has that big arm. He'll throw it up for him. He'll allow Galladay to make a play. Daniel Jones does not do that. He's got to see that the guy's open. He's very hesitant. He doesn't throw it downfield. That match, he does not match with Galladay. It doesn't work. Now, maybe the new offense can help that a little bit, but I would still stay away from Kenny Galladay. He's got to be better than he was last year because he can't be worse, but I still wouldn't go anywhere near it. That offense is
stinky.
I don't know what to do with Daniel Jones. He's not good. Now, Jerry Jeudy, on the other hand, we know what he can do. We know he's a great route runner. We know he's playing opposite another good receiver, and we know he got Russell Wilson. So, there's opportunity there. Now, will it be Tim Patrick? Will it be KJ Hamler? I don't know how it's going to turn out. New offense, new quarterback, but we know Judy's very talented. And so I don't know what his current ADP is. I'll have to look that up. But I would give Judy more of a chance to rebound here than Galladay. Laviska and Tony, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy, I think that his ADP is convenient because of new quarterback. Some people think he's gonna like Sutton better than Judy. Some people think he's gonna like Judy better than Sutton, and that makes both pretty bargains available. Yes. And that's cool because you can get the one you like for a good price. And the thing with Laviska, he's also another coin in the air because he's out of the nightmare that is having Urban Meyer as your coach. And the thing with Galladay, I think the fantasy world didn't took really into account what Stafford meant for Cop and for Galladay. No? Right. Both things were really people think that Galladay was so good because of himself and didn't consider how an improvement was for Cop to get Stafford. No, so we already confirmed that, and I would stay away also from Galladay and from Tony, from the Giants receivers as a whole.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wide receivers in the Giants, so maybe you have 5 good wide receivers that will spread all the touchdowns. So
take the cheapest one, I guess. But Jerry Judy's wide receiver 24, and Cortland Sutton's wide receiver 20. So basically 5th round picks. So I can live with that. Either way you want to go, that's fine with me. If you like Judy, that's great. I don't particularly love him, but again, if you're a fan and you know that offense is going to be better, which I think we all do, then I think that's a fair value. Now, Tony is pretty cheap though. And we saw him have that monster game last year, right? So I think we know what the potential is, but I'm not a fan. I'm not gonna have him anywhere.
But you think about Laviska because we know Orban is not there anymore in the Jacks. Trevor Lawrence threw a lot of passes last year, and without touchdowns for Laviska. And his rookie year were similar numbers in the yards, but 5 touchdowns. And last year, 600 yards and no touchdowns. So I think that Laviska could reach these 3 touchdowns in the next year, but not much because of the Christian Kirk and Sajan's arrival to the Jacks.
Well, and Laviska's wide receiver 74 right now in ADP, which means he's free. he's your last pick,
Sure.
right? So I have no issue with that, because if you're drafting him, you know who's wide receiver.
Ay, creo que fue él ahora, ¿verdad? Se nos trabó un poco Scott, pero es un buen punto lo que estaba diciendo él, ¿no? Que al final la Vizca Chenault es gratis, te lo puedes llevar en tu último pick y muy rápido te puedes dar cuenta si te funciona o no, ¿no? Entonces está ese punto con la Vizca y además está lo que hablábamos, ¿no? Jerry Judy sí es una opción de estos cuatro, es una buena opción para por donde te lo puedes llevar, al igual que Cortland Sutton, esperar una regresión positiva por la mejora en quarterback, sin duda. Muy bien. Ahora vamos a hablar de otro que también es uno que divide opiniones. DJ Moore. He scored only 4 touchdowns, 3.1 less than expected. He's a great player that has always played with bad quarterbacks, and the touchdowns reflect that. But now he's going to play with Baker Mayfield. So what do we think about DJ Moore? I know the upgrade at quarterback at least has to benefit him a bit, right?
It has to. It can't get worse. Yeah. DJ Moore has had 4 touchdowns each of the last 3 seasons, and he has 14 total in 4 years. He's so far under his expected touchdowns, it's not even funny. This is what we used to say about Julio Jones. Remember Julio Jones, always big targets, catches, yards, but never the touchdowns. Same thing with DJ Moore. Why? I don't know. But there is some good news, because the way that this new offense works, Ben McAdoo is the offensive coordinator there. He was last with the Giants. Again, terrible head coach, but pretty good offensive coordinator. So I think they'll at least get a good system going there. He should be the focal point. Baker was actually ranked number 1 in 2020 in deep ball percentage. So take that for what you will. But that's certainly better than anything Darnold or Heineke or Kyle Allen or PJ Walker or any of those guys have ever done for DJ Moore. So I think that's good news. I think that's overall good news. I think we have to, as long as it doesn't go crazy, I think at ADP, he's a good buy right now.
Sí, creo que hay buenas noticias con DJ Moore. Sobre todo lo que estamos hablando, que no solo es estadísticamente un candidato a regresión, de los que más regresión positiva se puede esperar, sino que la situación mejora para él en cuanto a quarterback, entonces debería tener una mejora, ¿no? En cuanto a la cantidad de touchdowns que tenga. Muy bien.
And one for Scott, Darnell Mooney.
Darnell Mooney. Ok, Darnell Mooney anotó 4 touchdowns, tuvo 2.34 menos de lo esperado. Darnell Mooney tiene una mucho mejor situación, ¿no? También Darnell Mooney is another player that has a much better situation. Well, no, I don't know if much better, but at least his quarterback is no longer a rookie, and he has less competition because the Bears did nothing to improve their team.
How dare you, says Byron Pringle. But why did Mooney not score the touchdowns last year? Because the offense wasn't good. Okay. So that's an easy explanation. Now, you have to also remember Mooney's like 170 pounds. So, I mean, basically I could step on him. He's very small. And, he's just not going to be a big touchdown guy, very likely. But at the same time, you're very right, Javier. Who else are they throwing to? I mean, there's just nobody. I'm hoping Cole Kmet, because if we were talking about tight ends today, he's the number 1 in touchdown regression. He scored no touchdowns, right? And so to have that many catches and that much involvement, so I think and Mooney could score
competition
more,
as well now.
But
Cole Kmet?
I don't know. Yeah, Cole Kmet.
Is there
Jimmy Graham is no
Jimmy Graham?
Yeah,
he's gone.
He has no
Yeah, gone.
competition.
Well,
He's gone. He's gone.
that was a hard competition.
For touchdowns, it
For
was.
touchdowns, yeah, sure.
I know.
Okay.
Sad but true.
Bueno, pues Darnell Mooney, entonces su situación también mejora, pero no es que mejore, sino que pues un quarterback de segundo año y aunque no hayan mejorado en la ofensiva, pues es la opción y debería de tener los touchdowns, a pesar de que, como bien dijo Scott, no es un jugador grande y tampoco debería de ser. No tiene el prototipo de ser un wide receiver de muchos touchdowns. Otro interesante en esta lista es Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers he scored 2 touchdowns. Last year, during the season, everyone talked about this. He just didn't get the touchdowns. And he had a lot of opportunity, but he didn't get the touchdowns. He was 3.03 below the expectation. But I don't know. Drafting New England players is always a pain in the ass. What do you guys think about Jacoby Myers?
Well, Sergio, I'll let you go first.
The problem with Jacoby Myers is he's in the Patriots and he's with an offense that spread all the touchdowns in any situation. So I guess it's a problem also with the Pats that there's not a key player, even if he is the key player in their offense in passing situation. So I think would be a good regression, a positive regression for him. I see Jacoby with more touchdowns this year.
Even with Parker there.
Even with Parker, do you remember Parker last year in Miami?
Well, he scored some touchdowns.
Yeah, some. O sea, it wasn't a great problem for Waddle last year.
No, but it's what Scott said about the Vikings. I'm not saying that Parker is going to be a touchdown monster, but he will take some of what could be
some of Nelson Aguilar, some of what's the other guy?
That's why I don't like
Akil Harry
Patriots, because Bill Belichick hates fantasy players.
Yeah, so.
But Jacoby Myers, this is the second time he's on this list. Do you remember how many touchdowns he scored in 2020?
No.
Zero. So yeah, guess what? Listen, do you guys know who Mac Jones, quarterback coach and offensive coordinator is right now? There's 3 guys running the offense. Joe Judge, who was a special teams coach. Okay. Matt Patricia, who was a defensive coordinator. Okay. And then there's a third guy as well. None of these guys even do offense. So what are they doing? I have no idea. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. They have 7 running backs. They just drafted like 3 more. I mean, James White is back. They re-signed him. I mean, I don't know. What are you gonna do? You can't trust New England in any way. I can't do anything with any of those guys.
It's pretty unpredictable. At least we have the option of not drafting them.
Yeah, that's right.
The opposing teams have to really try to figure out what they're gonna do, but we don't have the option of not drafting them. Muy bien, pues Jacoby Myers, sabemos que hay mucha gente que lo quiere mucho y que cree que va a romperla este año, pero pues sí, 2 touchdowns y demasiada incertidumbre en esa ofensiva, como siempre. Armas, hay demasiadas opciones para Mac Jones. Es muy difícil de predecir y lo que decimos, nosotros tenemos la suerte de poder elegir no draftear receptores de los Pats, mientras que las defensivas sí tienen que ingeniárselas para descubrir qué es lo que van a hacer. Entonces, evítense ese problema. ¿De qué otro hablaremos de los que tenemos por aquí? Creo que uno muy querido de los drafts de este año, Rashad Bateman, another one that has a much better situation fantasy-wise this year. No more Marquis Brown. He only scored 1 touchdown. last year we didn't have the opportunity to watch that game that Marquis Brown was not going to be there, but Lamar was also ruled out for that game, so we didn't have the chance to see Rashad and Lamar alone, and he scored 2.05 less than expected. I think he will have one of the biggest positive regressions in this list. What do you
I
guys
certainly
think
hope so. Rashad Bateman he's my guy. He's my guy. So
Me too.
I will tell you this.
We all agree.
I watch a lot of Big Ten football, and I watched him at University of Minnesota, and he played Tyler Johnson, who's actually on this list as well, right? He played at the same time as Tyler Johnson, and those two, they had a great. Bateman played the outside, Johnson was in the slot. It was great. What happened was Bateman, after Johnson moved on, he got COVID and he lost like 25 pounds. He was very sick. He just wasn't the same guy when he went into camp for the Ravens last year. And then he got hurt. And then you had the quarterback situation. So, I mean, last year was a disaster. And yet he was somewhat relevant. So the fact that last year was about as bad as it gets, and we know who he is, I think he's going to be a guy that's really going to come on the radar this year. Next year, he's going to be a very, very popular guy. So take him this year and, get ahead of it.
Yep, I agree. Todos aquí estamos de acuerdo en que Rashad Bateman es de los mayores candidatos a una regresión positiva, no solo por la estadística que lo favorece por un par de touchdowns, sino que la situación y lo que Scott menciona de lo que se vio de él en college y de cómo sus expectativas también están nubladas por lo que le pasó en college y por cómo realmente la gente no lo ha visto explotar como puede hacerlo. Aquí creo que muy rápido mencionar que Courtland Sutton también está en esta lista justo al lado de Jerry Judy, entonces ya hablamos un poco de los dos. Chase Claypool también anotó 3.12 menos de lo esperado, anotó solo 2 touchdowns. Pittsburgh también tiene su lado de misterio. Steelers are also kind of a mystery quarterback wise because they are saying goodbye to Big Ben and hello to Mitch Trubisky. And what could that mean for this offense? Deontay Johnson was like the escape valve for Big Ben. Maybe Trubisky will start spreading around a bit more. That could mean more targets for Claypool. What do you think about Chase Claypool, guys?
Sergio.
It's a top 3 wide receiver.
On his team?
On his team.
On his team, yeah, right. How many is the regression?
He has a 3.12 expected.
5. The expected is 5 for him.
Yes.
Based on that. I think they will have problems at the beginning with the rhythm with Trubisky. So, but there's a problem here because if Trubisky gets in shape with any of the 3 wide receivers, that will define everything. And if that one is Claypool, that would be good for him. But in the other side, he could be without 0 touchdowns next year. So I think it could be risky for Claypool, not too much for Deontay, but for Claypool, I see a risk if you take him in a high ADP.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I think what's going to happen, I don't believe Pittsburgh is going to pay Deontay Johnson. So this year, there's a lot of guys there, and we don't know which direction. We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. So this year is going to be interesting. But next year, we want to see what Claypool does this year to see if he rebounds or if he builds a connection with either Trubisky or Pickett. so that we know for next year if he's going to be a relevant option, because they also drafted George Pickens. And so I think it's going to be Claypool and Pickens next year, but that doesn't help us this year. So I would stay away from Claypool.
Yeah, this year is to watch out for what happens with Claypool for next year when Deontay Johnson is gone. And Deontay Johnson is going to fight for earning a good contract somewhere else. So
in Chicago with Justin Fields. Yeah.
I would like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
Deontay,
me
I mean, like the Steelers are like the fuerzas básicas, as we say here in Mexico. They're like this constantly burping good wide receivers because they just don't pay them. So,
that's right.
So I guess, yeah, we're going to see him somewhere else. And that, Deontay Johnson, digo, no, Chase Claypool, ya está, hablamos de él. Sí debería de mejorar, pero igual es un volado. Claramente le apuestan a que sea el alfa en el futuro cuando no renueven el contrato de Deontay Johnson, pero este es un año complicado para apostarle a Chase Claypool hasta ver qué él nos puede dar para el siguiente. Y vamos a cerrar esto con Deebo Samuel. También digo, en esta lista está AJ Green, está Zay Jones, por distintas razones. Pero bueno, vamos a hablar de Deebo Samuel, que fue uno de los mejores jugadores o de los que más valor regresaron el año pasado. Deebo tenía un total de touchdowns esperados de 8.34, anotó 6 y la verdad es que nos dimos cuenta que fue por fin el foco de esta ofensiva. Deebo is one of those guys that should see a positive regression because he's really one of the focal points of the 49ers offense. It all depends on how they use them now that he complained about being used too much as a running back. But Deebo is great. I like him. What do you think of Deebo?
Yeah, I think he's going to do more in the receiving game this season because he doesn't want the abuse that you take as a running back. And he also doesn't want to get paid like a running back. So if he plays a certain amount of snaps there, they're going to try to pay him like a running back. Whereas he needs the, 80% or more of snaps at wide receiver. So he can get that 20 million that all the guys got paid this year. So that's why he wants to play receiver. He's a better receiver than Ayuk. So Brandon Ayuk. So I think between him and Kittle, he definitely has a chance to get back to normal receiving numbers, but his rushing numbers were crazy. His touchdown efficiency there, even if he does get used the same way as a running back, he's not going to score that many touchdowns. He was way above. So it'll balance out.
Yeah. And the good thing is that his ADP,
I think, yeah, ready.
I'm back. that his ADP is not crazy right now, and that's a good thing because it's but I think that it's gonna be a mystery how if the receiving work can compensate the lack of rushing work. Pues sí, Deebo, hablamos un poco de él para terminar. No es candidato a regresión en touchdowns por aire, obviamente, pero habrá que ver si eso logra compensar lo que probablemente deje de hacer por tierra porque se quejó de ser demasiado utilizado como running back. Y bueno, pues esos son los principales candidatos a una regresión positiva. Hablamos de la regresión negativa también. Y pues hasta ahí este episodio. Muchas gracias a los que nos acompañaron. Scott, it was really nice having you here. Thank you very much for taking the time and for coming on the show. It was a delight for us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
¿Y dónde te pueden encontrar en redes sociales?
Yes, I forgot to say that at first. Where can people find you? Social media? Where can they listen to your pod?
Yeah, very, very creative on Twitter here. It is my name at Scott_Sidlo, SIDLO. And you can find me mostly on Dynasty Junkies We mostly talk, big overall strategy. We try to take it a little bit more next level and just help people as much as we can. So it's a fun show, and we're part of the Trade Addict or the Dynasty Addicts podcast network. So the DAP network has a lot of great shows, all different content on there, and that's the best follow. So that's at DAP network on Twitter.
Cool.
And YouTube.
Great. Well, thank you very, very much for visiting us at our podcast. A Scott lo pueden encontrar, ya dijo, en Scott con doble T, _ Sidlo, como suena, Sidlo. Y nos recomendó mucho para quienes les gusta el Dynasty, que cada vez es más popular también aquí en México. Busquen no solo Dynasty Junkies, que es su show, sino al DAP Network, DAP, donde pueden ver muchos shows relacionados al Dynasty muy interesantes y muy clavados, como nos gusta a todos. Y Serge, muchas gracias también, como siempre. Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en este episodio. Como siempre, síganos, déjenos reviews, suscríbanse, denle a la campanita en YouTube y demás, recomiéndenos y nos vemos la próxima. Adiós.
Gracias por acompañarnos en un episodio más de Fantástico Tocho. No olvides suscribirte en Spotify o Apple Podcast y seguirnos en Facebook y Twitter.